Hello, I'm Charlene White. ITV News has obtained the Met's figures from more than 5 years of stop and search. Results from a Freedom of Information request reveal the ethnic background of those involved in each instance. The figures show what Black and Asian Londoners have claimed for years, that they're stopped and searched far more than white people. Yesterday, the Home Secretary announced a review of the policy and new guidelines. But is stop and search now so discredited that only scrapping it would be enough to improve relations between the police and London's communities? Well, here's our senior correspondent, Ronke Phillips.
Black, male and living in London, and you're more likely to be stopped and searched. Yesterday, the police were ordered to cut back on the practice. Now, a Freedom of Information request by this programme has revealed disturbing statistics. The Met provided us with the ethnic background of people stopped and searched. In all, there were over 2.6 million stop and search incidents. More than 279,000 involved people of Caribbean descent. When compared to the makeup of the capital's population, that equates to 80 stop and search incidents for every 100 people. There were over 104,000 stops involving people of Bangladeshi descent. That equates to 47 for every 100 people. And just over 779,000 involved people of white British descent. That equates to 21 incidents for every 100 people. Stopped 11 times by police and never charged with an offence, Ramil Aflik is the human face of what's being called an unacceptable affront to justice.
I've had a very mixed opinion of how those went. Some of them were more positive than others, where I felt the police officers acted properly, and then there were times when actually I felt like the police officers didn't act as they should, and their attitude towards me was quite negative, and I didn't feel like that was necessary.
It is a waste of police time. It is unfair, especially to young black men.
It's the unfair targeting of ethnic minorities which led the Home Secretary to order a major overhaul of the practice yesterday.
The revised code will emphasise that where officers are not using their powers properly, they will be subject to formal performance or disciplinary proceedings.
But for London MP Chuka Imana, the measures do not go far enough.
I think a disappointing aspect of the announcement today is that she's talking about introducing a voluntary code when actually we wanted, for example, discrimination to be outlawed and that to be enshrined in law.
The Metropolitan Police says it's already working on reducing stops and searches, but maintains it's an important part of policing.
If you think about the amount of violence we've seen in certain areas of London, it's hardly a wonder that there's almost a disproportionate effect on some communities who are stopped where weapons are involved.
But critics say even with the current changes, it will take years, if not generations, before young black men feel they're not being unfairly targeted. Ronke Phillips, ITV News.
With me now is Janet Hills, Chair of the Metropolitan Black Police Association, and Professor Ben Bowling, founder member of Stopwatch, a campaign group for accountable policing. Thank you both for joining me. Janet, I'm going to start with you because, of course, these figures do show a level of disproportion when it comes to stop and search. Do you think it's worth keeping it, or do you think perhaps there needs to be an alternative found?
I think it's worth keeping. It's a preventative tool, and what we get fed back from the communities is that it's the way in which it's applied. So they're aware that it's unfair, they're aware that it's disproportionate, it's impacting on black communities, and although they want to keep it, they want it used fairly. But
for police officers that are on the street, and they're the ones that are obviously taking part in stop and search, what exactly are they supposed to do? Are they going to be discouraged from pulling over any black or Asian males or females who they believe could be up to no good?
It's all about the intelligence about the stop. So when you are doing your job as a police officer, you will have intelligence about where burglaries are, where robberies are, and it's about targeting that intelligence around using stop and search.
Ben, do you think that's enough?
No, I don't actually. I think that the Home Secretary wanted to scrap certain stop and search powers, particularly the notorious Section 60 powers, which don't require a police officer to have any suspicion. And I think that a person should only ever be stopped and searched if they're suspected of being involved in wrongdoing. the whole random stop and search or stop and search on a hunch, that's what has really annoyed people and has actually broken the bond between police and community.
But obviously there are some circumstances where you may well have a hunch as a police officer and actually that does come through to fruition because that person could have been doing no wrong. Yeah,
yes, well, I think the thing is that where there is reasonable suspicion, where there is something objective that you or me might say, oh yes, that's the kind of thing that would make you suspicious, and that can be explained to the person who's being stopped. I don't have a problem with that. The problem comes when somebody is randomly stopped or stopped without good reason.
What would you say the answer is then? What would you like to see happen instead?
Well, I think the Home Secretary is absolutely right. The level of stop and search should be reduced. It should be restricted only to those where a police officer has genuine, grounded, reasonable suspicion to stop somebody. And after all, this is an intrusive power that asks someone to empty their pockets or open their bag or to have their car searched. That should only ever happen where there's a real reasonable suspicion that they're involved in wrongdoing.
So, Janet, do you think that police officers will be okay with not being able to just go on a hunch, for example?
At the end of the day, they've said about the reasonable suspicion, and there is going to be work done around the use of that and the definition of that. So it is important that officers know what grounds they are using and how they're using it. And if that's a matter of training for those officers, then so be it. But they should know what reasonable suspicion is.
Well, hopefully, Ben, they will get some training on that and we'll see how it goes from there.
Well, I think that training doesn't really go far enough. I would much rather have seen proper controls on the abuse of police power.
OK, well, Ben and Janet, thank you both for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Miliband put affordable